We don't want war with anybody. But the United States is prepared. We're locked and loaded. And we're ready to defend our interests and our allies in the region. As the President said yesterday, it's certainly looking like Iran was behind these attacks. Our intelligence community at this very hour is working diligently to review the evidence. The Secretary of State is traveling to Saudi Arabia today.
Vice President Mike Pence doubling down on the president's statement that the U.S. is, quote, locked and loaded after the drone attack on oil fields in Saudi Arabia. Now, the good news is that oil prices dropped today amid a report that Saudi Arabia production has returned already to pre-attack levels. The bad news, U.S. officials are now telling Fox News that Iranian cruise missiles, in addition to the drones, were used in the attack and that the weapons were fired from inside Iran. Here now is House Armed Services Committee member Jim Banks. Now, Congressman, President Trump says he'd like to avoid war with Iran. Nobody wants a war, but how should these attacks be handled if indeed Iran was behind them?
Well, David, we need to keep doing what we're doing. The retaliation of the Iranians against Saudi Arabia is a testament that the maximum pressure campaign by the tough sanctions that this president has placed on Iran are working. And we can ratchet up those sanctions. But at the end of the day, we need to keep doing what we're doing to maintain that pressure campaign. I have no doubt that that's what this president will do. The facts speak for themselves. The Iranian economy is literally caving in and feeling the effects of those sanctions. The Iranians have, at this point, they're acting out because that's all they can do. And if we keep doing what we're doing, then ultimately we're going to succeed.
Congressman, it's Jonathan Hoenig. Thank you for being with us. You mentioned doing what we're doing. We're doing sanctions. What we're not doing is use of force. Of course, that's what the phrase locked and loaded kind of suggests. Look, both Iran and Saudi Arabia are theocratic, Islamic, really barbaric third world countries. Why not, in effect, let them fight it out? Not unlike Iran in Iraq did for the better part of 10 years, as against getting American troops or American lives involved in most likely another bloody conflict in the Middle East. Your thoughts?
I appreciate that's been this president's approach. The president has shown remarkable restraint in dealing with Iran and allowing some of the provocations to occur and meeting those provocations with a legitimate response without getting America into another war. That's been the president's approach all along. The maximum pressure campaign has led Iran's economy to the brink of destruction. The facts speak for themselves. Negative 12% economic growth in Iran, 40% inflation. Today, the oil revenue for Iran is only 10% of what it was before.
So you're not going to support any use of force, briefly. So you won't support any use of force by the U.S.
At this point, it doesn't appear to be necessary, and that's what I appreciate about the president's approach and how he's dealt with each of Iran's provocations. That doesn't mean that America isn't prepared to go to war. That's a big reason why this president has worked with myself, other members on the Armed Services Committee, to build the most powerful military that we've had in a very long time, and building up the American military and showing a greater presence and force in the region, but this president is doing everything that he can to avoid going to war, and that's what I appreciate.
Congressman, as well as you may be reiterating the administration's talking points, I'm not so sure that a region that's veering toward greater instability, with the Saudis on the one hand complicit in a Yemeni civil war that's displaced millions of people without any objection on the part of Washington, combined with an Iran that is feeling so boxed in that it too may resort to force, and these two countries may stumble their way into war. I'm not sure how that justifies your point that the president's approach is therefore working spectacularly. I mean, what if they go to war? Will it work even more spectacularly?
Well, you can name a number of what ifs, and we can have a hypothetical conversation, but the facts speak for themselves. The Iranian economy is on the brink of a collapse, and either there will be an overthrow of the Iranian government by its people who have had enough. By the way, 17 out of 18 pension funds in Iran are in the red. The Iranian people aren't going to allow
Same is true in Illinois,
leaders
but
to
people
take
are not
them
about
down
to
this path
overthrow the
forever.
government of Illinois.
I don't know. I live in Illinois. We might be doing that. Congressman, it's Carol Roth. I am not trying to overthrow Illinois, but I do want to get your take on what you think Iran's end game here is. Do you think that they are trying to bait the U.S. into war to cover for a variety of potentially nefarious activities or some other reason?
Well, it's pretty clear to me that the Iranians, while today they're not willing to come to the table and meet with President Trump to negotiate a better deal to replace the failed JCPOA, I do believe that that's on their horizon. They won't have any other choice if we maintain the maximum pressure campaign. That is the administration's approach. That has been the approach since the very beginning, to force Iran into a corner so they come back to the table and negotiate a deal that will forever not allow them to pursue nuclear weapons and will take away funding that will prevent them from funding their proxy groups that fund terrorism in that part of the world. That's the end game. That's been the president's approach. And so far, I appreciate how the president has handled the situation with Iran.
Steve,
Congressman,
quickly.
this is Steve Moore here. I just, watching the events of the last 3 or 4 days, it seems to me to be a reminder of why it's so important that we're increasing American oil and gas production. And I wonder if you could maybe talk to your Democratic colleagues who say that we should shut down fracking and other oil and gas development in the United States and remind them how important it is because of the instability of the Middle East.
Steve, you make a great point. Energy independence is a national security asset for the United States of America. I also appreciate that this president has remodeled the Reagan-era peace through strength mantra in a way, and building up the American military as a deterrent to Iran doing harm on the United States of America.
Congressman Banks, thank you so much for being here. And again, thanks
Great
for
to be
your
with you.
service in the armed forces. We appreciate that as well.